Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me this afternoon, we have Tyler Saltsman, co-founder and CEO of EdgeRunner AI, and Kaspar Korjus, co-founder and CEO of Pactum AI. We're here to discuss why the AI race is not just about technological innovation, it's also about national security and procurement, among another issues that we have going on here. Tyler, it's great to see you. Welcome back to Trade Talks. Give us a brief background on EdgeRunner AI and why this isn't just about the innovation part of technology, but it really is a higher level national security issue.
That's right. So at EdgeRunner, what we're doing is we're building occupation-specific agents for the warfighter. So I was a former Army logistician. I would have an Army logistics agent that knows everything about the Army, living right on my device that doesn't require internet or having to move data. And so what we're doing is imagine now all of these different occupations within the military, everyone will have their own personalized AI agent that augments them to be better at their job. In terms of national security, it's really important that we're not moving our data to third-party APIs like OpenAI. I think that's problematic. And then more importantly, with AI, we have to understand the training data and the biases. We saw with DeepSeek how powerful these models have become. But if you don't know the training data or the biases, it could be dangerous. And we need to know if AI has been injected with poison or toxins that aren't indicative of American culture or values.
Yeah, and Tyler, as always, thank you for your service. Kaspar, give us a refresher on Pactum AI, and let's switch gears for a moment here and also talk about tariffs, right? Because that's also going to impact procurement and supply chains.
Pactum AI, we are building agents for large enterprise procurement divisions. So we have agent chatbots who are negotiating deals with suppliers. So while we speak, thousands of agents are making deals, conducting deals. And Fortune 500s are using these agents for the last 6 years. And tariffs is a great example of where the agents can be pretty useful, because if the environment is changing so rapidly, so quickly, you need to react. And it's quite challenging to react with tens of thousands of your suppliers within weeks.
Well, Kaspar, let me ask you this question. Since the operating environment is unclear at this point because the execution on tariff strategy hasn't played out yet, how are companies responding? You can't just turn on a switch and your supply chain and your procurement strategy switches based on whatever headline is at the moment.
Exactly, and it's very worrisome, because I can say that majority of Fortune 500s today do not have very strong strategy on what to do with tariffs, because it's so much unknown there. So what they are doing now with Pactum AI agents is that they are creating new frame agreements with their suppliers, so that when changes happen, when new tariffs are coming in, then they are able to kind of turn around very quickly and adjust pricing, volumes, some allowances, and this is how they prepare today with agents.
Yeah. And Tyler, another area of concern too is open source versus proprietary AI. When you and I spoke at CES, it was more coming back to that hybrid model where you had some internal controls over your proprietary data, but the administration's also advocating for open source AI. And to your point earlier, that opens up other avenues of vulnerabilities. How do you think the administration is thinking about that? And why should companies be posturing in a more defensive way?
Yeah, I'd like to think that our current administration is more in favorable of open source AI than the previous ones. I think what's great about open source is you need the ability to audit the AI. You need the transparency to understand how the AI thinks. Problem with these closed source models like Anthropic's Claude or OpenAI's GPT-4, it's you don't understand how it was made or the training data used. Therefore, if it were to be injected with harmful, call it a bad actor, that AI could go off the rails. And if it's closed source, it's a black box, it's much harder to use it safely. With open source, if it's been compromised, it's much easier to see, because you can see all the guts, the code base, the architecture, the weights of the model. But then I still think we need to take it a step further and understand the training data, which no one today is actually exposing what training data they're using, which is something that we're solving for.
Let's talk about that on a more granular level, Tyler, when we think about AI's role in military superiority. And strategic deterrence. I feel like AI is becoming one of those terms where it's almost a catch-all, just to say that you have AI within your strategy. But drill down for us. What is the role that it's going to play in maintaining our superiority in leadership and acting as a deterrent? Because as we've spoken about before, the good actors and the bad actors are using the same kind of technology.
Yeah, I think what's great about AI is it can create a common operating picture. It can get us all on the same page. So, for example, an Army logistics agent that can help me plan for my missions, mitigate risk, generate the convoy ops. It can help me if things were to go sideways on a mission. And in the military, we say the wrong decision made quickly is better than the right decision made too late. Now, at least with generative AI, it can help us make much better decisions that are based on data. And it can help us make this decision instantly. And it's not a silver bullet, but now I can then increase my probability of winning the fight and then pivot if I have to. And that's where I see AI really augmenting the warfighter. We have to augment human intelligence. We have to make us all better at our roles, all better at our jobs. And then from there, the fighting force is just uplifted and we can win the fight more.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you, Kaspar, the same question in a different way. How is AI helping navigate tariffs and trade wars and providing more quantitative insight for those business leaders?
Yeah, so the AI, it starts with the AI analyzing what's going on. Like, let's say that there is new tariff on some metals, like we have heard. You need to know in your supply chain which products consist of these metals, first of all, so AI can do these tens of thousands of analysis in real time. Then understanding what the price should be based on the tariffs. Then reaching out suppliers, existing and new suppliers, to replace them. Then agreeing on volumes and deals and pricing, and all of that AI can help now procurement and supply chains to do within minutes, not within years, as traditionally it's done by humans. And this is the power. If you can now move very fast, you will beat your competitors and globally also other players.
Yeah. And Tyler, I want to go back to what you had mentioned earlier in terms of AI is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's going to fix, all the world's problems, because we do have to acknowledge the risk and the ethical implications that come along with AI. How are you helping customers to navigate these risks? What are your thoughts around it? Because data in and data out, it really is contingent on those variables and how it's being processed and structured and used at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think what's deeply concerning is OpenAI and Sam Altman, they're trying to create AGI, which would replace humans, which is very bad. And also, if it's powerful enough to replace humans, why would it help us and work for us? I think what we need to do is have a collective intelligence via many smaller models working together, and then augmented by adapters that are domain specific. So what we can do is then take a small language model, put domain specific knowledge in it, augment that model, but then deattach that adapter so we can keep using different, call it specific task adapters to make us better. I don't think we're using AI to actually augment humans. I think right now these generalized open models or even closed source models, they're cool and they're fun, but they're not actually solving real problems. And I think that's really what we need to address is how do we solve those problems in a safe, secure way so your data doesn't leave your environment, and which means these models need to be hosted locally on your devices, free from the internet.
Yeah. Tyler, I think what is challenging for me is if there is no central source of control, and you could make the same argument in the digital asset space, who's the arbiter of what the standardization should look like in the absence of traditional legislation and framework and so forth? How have we thought about how this is going to be arbitrated, right?
That's a great question, and I honestly don't have a good answer to that. I really think we all need to come together as a collective, Congress, tech leaders, military leaders, and I think we all need to get on the same page and really decide which problems are we working backwards from. But really, it goes back to transparency. In order to build the right thing, we all need to be working together. We need to see the data sets. We need to see the models. We need to see the adapters. And that way we prevent get hit by the bus syndrome, but also we prevent AI going rogue and not understanding how it went rogue.
Yeah, I don't think we've come to that inflection point yet where perhaps strategies might be backtracked or that risk analysis has been put at the forefront. And I have a feeling that we'll probably start to see that in the near future. But let's talk about it in a different perspective. Kaspar, when you think about AI as an economic stabilizer, I think that's an interesting concept and something that should be acknowledged as well.
And that's correct. Like we see the macro environmental change is happening faster than ever. Like it was just a few years ago when we had COVID or supply chain crisis or economic crisis or and now the war. And so you always need to kind of become stable while the environment is hectic. And hence AI, what we see at the moment by like, for example, one of the Fortune 5s who is using AI agents in negotiations already, they are diversifying their supply chain by mitigating these risks that if new tariffs hit, for example, then they have wider choice. And this is where agents becoming very useful, even if they're not on large language models, on the latest models, like Tyler says, like open-ended that they can't be trusted. They can still be agents. They can still be like deterministic agents that have very specific goal in their mind. For example, searching new suppliers, closing a deal with that supplier, and with that very specific domain, AI agents can be trusted. And hence, large enterprises are now going to that road that they really try to leverage very domain-specific agents for their life.
Yeah, Tyler, I see you nodding in agreement. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good call out. Like deterministic AI versus like generative AI. As generative AI comes up with new ideas and new content, that's different than a model with one particular task that's an expert at that task. So I agree, and I think we need a combination of both. Whereas I'm more focused on the generative AI aspect, and then agents then augmenting those ideas. It's important to just take a step back and slow down and think this through. And again, it goes back to like, how are we crafting these agents? How are we building these data sets? And I think it's important that we all talk about it and we share knowledge and we work together.
Yeah, Tyler, I would agree with you. And, certainly don't want to sound fatalistic. And we're at an inflection point where we're going to learn if these things are working or not working. But this is also how we learn, right? I don't think move fast and break things, that startup mantra is necessarily applicable here, but you do learn as each iteration of technology evolves, right? Our conversation could look very different 3 to 6 months from now, and hopefully we have learned something as we move along, and these technologies will improve upon themselves as they get better predictive tools, mitigation tools, response tools. I think that's worthy to acknowledge as well.
Absolutely. And like our bigger vision is, think of it as like building the Jarvis to your Iron Man. But now every person has their own Jarvis that lives offline on your device, making recommendations to you, making your life easier, helping you in your job. AI really needs to work for us. And again, it needs to stay offline on your device. And that's also how we mitigate the cost. If you look at Doge, they're wanting to cut back on expensive assets. Problem with AI, it's so expensive inferencing in those data centers. Well, now that we can shrink these models, put them on your device, we've also solved for that as well.
Yeah. And of course, these things are naturally going to scale as they evolve and we understand them better. So Kaspar, I'll give you the last thought here in terms of your outlook and what we can learn from this moment in time and how to improve upon these technologies.
Technology itself is, I would argue, already so advanced that the change, that the impact needs to come now within organizations to actually adapt these technologies, to make the change happen, to change their processes, to change their legislation in countries, to train people how to collaborate with robots, with bots, with AIs, how we call them, right? They're not like Terminators with bodies. They are there digitally and chatting with you, and we need to understand how this human to agent collaboration works. And this is, I think, more critical next phase with that adoption compared to, again, next level of LLM that comes out, which is even more powerful.
Right. Appreciate both of your insights as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.